Soapbox After Dark. I said I was going to be around late into the night, and here I am around late into the night. I figure I'm up. I'm Adam. So let's do the news. Less news in this particular case. This one is a little bit more comical to me. This is Alex Jones. Alex Jones and Joe Rogan, of course, went to war, but Alex Jones in this case has gone on the Joe Rogan show and has spent 3 hours with Joe Rogan. And this is a degree of hilarity that people had no idea existed. Blaze one if you got one. Now, Soapbox After Dark, sobriety is optional. But still, blaze one if you got one. And I say that. This is not necessarily a 420 video. I say that in the same way that people kind of smoke pot and then eat food, and the food just tastes amazing because they were dramatically hungry from the pot that they just smoked. It's a pleasure to the senses itself. It enhances the senses. For this type of video, because this type of video is going to be a level of comedy that is unparalleled for the Joe Rogan show. Also, they are smoking pot on the Joe Rogan show and are stoned off their ass as this interview goes on between the two, and Alex Jones goes down one rabbit hole after the next of mind-blowing stuff. Mexicans are violent genetically, which is why it's run like a lab. Well, the United States runs it like a laboratory. Human and animal hybrids being kept in incubators. And at one point he flips out against, I think the guy's name is Eddie. The guy who's on the Joe Rogan show with him. Eddie is stoned off his ass and is a flat earther, apparently, which is fucking mind-blowing. Jones apparently doesn't believe in flat earth, which is amazing. He's outflanked Alex Jones on a somewhat crazy meter. And it's just awesome. Joe Rogan has this way of doing interviews that I marvel at. Like, it's the simplicity of a question. People used to say, like, playing chess, Capablanca, all these different people had various styles that they would use, just in the very nature of which they played. Human beings, their personalities are arranged in somewhat different ways. They weigh the world in different ways, and from strategic interests and how they perceive those things, they see it in somewhat different ways also. Those things come out like a signature from the standpoint of playing chess. Each one had a very somewhat style. Capablanca had this extraordinarily simplistic style, where people like Kasparov or Alekhine had these flashy plays where you dramatically rip the person's defenses apart, break their heart out their chest, and eat it raw, that type of stuff. Capablanca was more of a simplistic move player, extraordinarily simplistic. Any move that he plays, for the most part, you can understand and you can easily explain. And yet, he was able to be a master at that style of play. You could say Fisher was that way too, but Fisher had a tactical flair. My point is this. Rogan approaches interviews in that kind of fashion, with this very extraordinarily simplistic question after question after question, and explores the psyche of the individual he's talking about. He pushes back, but the pushback is never extraordinary to the point of trying to stop the person from saying what they want to say. He allows them to make their case. Two things about this interview. Frenemies. I'm putting forth my own conspiracy or my own theory here. Joe Rogan may be a better person than I am, but maybe not. Assuming for the moment that he's not a better person than I am, that he's just a person, I would imagine he has some feelings about Alex Jones going after him in the way Alex Jones went after him, especially with the level of crazy that he was using to go after him. And he seemed bewildered, Rogan, when this first took place, and as he's tried to explain himself to his audience. I suspect two things were accomplished in this interview. One, Rogan got to allow people to see Jones as Jones. Meaning, as they went down one crazy path after the next crazy path, and Rogan essentially allowed him to go down those crazy paths, people could at the very least say, whatever accusation that was made against Joe Rogan from Alex Jones, this is the quantity that made that accusation. Now evaluate the accusation based on what you just saw here in regards to the shit that Alex Jones was saying. It delegitimizes the claims against Joe Rogan. That's assuming that Joe Rogan cared of the stuff that Jones was saying about him. For the second part, Alex Jones was allowed to be Alex Jones, which is to scream relevance in an area, Facebook, Twitter, all those things, this kind of social media thing, that have essentially tried to wipe him away. Meaning, in the act of wiping him away, he's still there, he's still around, and he still draws a crowd and an audience. In which case, we did so here. Meaning, both interests were served. That's my thought. I could be completely wrong on this. I'm just evaluating them how I think I would feel in the moment if this, with the priorities of Jones and the priorities of Rogan, and what is the interplay between those priorities. And I suppose that what I just said were the interplay between those two priorities. But I could be wrong. Let's take a look at the video. This video was epic. Like, it's 3 hours, and I'm going to have to do 2 videos on it because the level of crazy that's in this video can't be contained in one of my videos. It's too much. There are too many topics. So this is the first one that somebody did a good skit for. I changed this a little bit, so let's
inside our government are
all right, here we go. Now there's one where he's talking about keeping babies in incubators. That's awesome. But let's take a look at this. All right, I'm going to kill the mic and flip it over.
Joe, I'm just totally spilling my guts here because people need to know about all this, and this is what's going on, and this is what's happening. And so they want the cement of blood is they get people in a group, and they get them to do horrible, evil things during peer pressure, and then they create this synthesis. And you have to know the darker elements of the criminal networks that are inside our government are actually running Mexico as a laboratory test. Because they know Native Americans are gung ho and they're tough and they're ready to fight. And
Joe Rogan said, "Jesus Christ." Now, that Jesus Christ, I don't think it's because it's like, wow, you've just told me some powerful shit. I think that Jesus Christ wasn't within the flow of the conversation. It was a meta narrative or in the conversation itself. Jesus fucking Christ. This guy is off his rocker. I suspect that's where that was going. But let's keep going. Joe Rogan is allowing Jones to be Jones.
I'm part Native American, only like 6% Comanche, and Texas, and just that little bit makes me wild. Yeah. And so they can.
Oh, gotta play this again. You gotta. I hope you didn't miss that point because of the Joe Rogan thing. Mexicans are genetically violent. Because that little bit of Native American in him makes him wild because he's part Comanche. I love the fact that it's attributed to the genetics itself that makes him wild. Let's hear it again. Let's play it again.
Networks that are inside our government are actually running Mexico as a laboratory test.
Right. And Mexico's being ran as a laboratory test. Oh God, I love that.
Because they know Native Americans are gung ho and they're tough and they're ready to fight. And I'm part Native American, only like 6% Comanche, and Texas, and just that little bit makes me wild. Yeah. And so they can get them because they're powerful, they're smart, they're neat, they're cool, but genetically they go into groupthink really, really fast. And so Native Americans you can mind control really fast.
He said Native Americans you can mind control really fast because they go into groupthink, and as they grow into groupthink in this way, you can tap into the group mind as opposed to people who are individuals, in which case you would have to get a lot of them together. God, that's amazing. And I love Joe Rogan's reaction of, Jesus Christ, tell me more. Explain to people how what you're saying about me is fucking insane just by virtue of you being utterly insane. Here's another one.
In fact, they're not even crazed going wild. Korea, like that, nobody like in fights like in Korea. The Chinese, that's who were really fighting there, or Vietnam. Do you think freaking? I mean, they're like they're conscious and real people, but when they get into a fight, they all sync up and are robots and have no fear. I mean, you're talking about psychotic killers you're fighting. And so Asians are about the most fearless killers there are.
You like the Mongols?
He said they sync up like Voltron or something, and they're just no fear. All the fear leaves them because they're just syncing up like robots. And I love how he initially said, he says, they're real people, they're conscious. But when they're in a military situation, they just sync up like robots. In fact, They have no fear. They're psychotic killers in a sense. Let's keep going. There's more crazy.
Any of them. I mean, once Asians go to war, it's like they do not. In fact, they're not even crazed going wild in a battle. They're like robots coming to kill you. And so,
what do you think that's from? Do you think that's from their heritage of war, that they have a long, like if you think about Japan has a long history of being a noble warrior culture with the samurais and all the martial arts.
But you say, is it from the nobility? It's the genetics,
right? But
the genetics is what creates the. It's like 500 of you loading planes to go kill yourselves.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I agree with you. What I'm saying is, think about a place like Japan where so much.
Joe Rogan's missing what he's saying, or Joe Rogan is bypassing it. Alex Jones is saying some pretty racist shit here. Their genetics itself makes them like robots and sync up in that way. It's genetics. That's all it is. The genetics of human beings are like 99.9% the same. It would be difficult for one person to... I'm sorry, the DNA of the people are 99.9% the same. Their genetics make them like robots. They have no control over this process, no agency in this process. They can become psychotic killers as robots. Rogan is kind of making the point from a cultural standpoint. Well, what do you think does that? Do you think it's because of the culture of war that they got into that mindset? He's giving it credence. Like, he's giving it the benefit of the doubt, and he's trying to add a little bit of reality to it, and putting it in the physical dimension. And Jones is like, no. It's genetics. It has nothing to do with culture. It's their genetics. Their genetics, they're like that because of who they are.
Martial arts came from. Kendo, sword fighting, karate, a bunch of different branches of karate, judo, jiu-jitsu. Japan. All that stuff came from Japan. I mean, that is a group of people that were obsessed with combat. I mean, they figured out
the ruling class was.
Well, not just that, the soldiers and even the civilians.
No, I agree. But the ruling class was the samurai, the shoguns.
The ruling class was the shoguns, right? And when you think about what a small place Japan is and how stunning it is, that so much innovation, especially in terms of like my line of work, martial arts.
And I don't get into bell curves because you've got black people that are as smart as any white person, and then you've got black people that are way better at sports or whatever. I mean, there are genetic differences. We're not, and then you've got the head of your former, Cold Springs Harbor, Watson, comes out and says blacks aren't human, all that BS. That's just the racist crap that's in the government. But it's true that some groups of Northern Europeans, and then the Japanese, on average, per capita, have the highest IQ.
God, this is so awesome. This is fucking gold. There's another one. And by the way, I should have put this in the beginning of the video, but do you remember where all of this started? Just so you can see where all of this started. Alex Jones declared war on Joe Rogan. This is how they got to this point. This is, I guess, when Jones doubled down on that war.
That I'm harassing families or that didn't happen, because that's not what I'm saying. And he repeats all of it and then says, well, Media Matters said. That's George Soros. So he says, I'm not following talking points, but then he goes off George Soros' own group. It's very, very shameful. It's painful. And he's like, oh, Alex, if I saw you, I'd still hug you. Joe, I'm not trying to get on your show. I don't want to be your friend. I'm coming after you. Attack me. Stop lying. Be real for once in your life. You chameleon. You're a sellout. You're a bad person. I'm coming after you. I don't want to hug you. I don't want on your show. I'm not kissing your ass. I've got my own stuff going on. I took down Hillary. I took down globalists. I'm not, dude, you're like a small fry, except now the globalists think that you're their tour de force, that you're this big special thing. So I'm coming. And in the final deal, just line up and start swinging, dude, politically. You're big tough man, right? Don't. Oh, Alex, I love you, and then put a bunch of lies out. Just be a man. Say, I hate you. I'm going to get you. Don't say, oh, I want to hug you. I'm your friend, and then put a bunch of lies out. You cowardly son of a bitch. You're a big man, aren't you? Give me some war. Let's go. That's right. We're not creeping around the shadows anymore, buddy boy. I'm going to lay you low. I haven't even brought out the facts yet, which you fear.
I'm going to lay you low.
Don't you worry your bottom dollar. You're a weak link in the system. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if globalists don't take you out of the game real fast. I'll be real careful. You're out driving your car around. Be real careful. You don't have to worry about me. You're a weak link, Joe. You act like a bull all day. You act like this big bad man. This big Italian stallion. What you really are is a little bitch. A coward. Afraid of his own shadow. He thinks he's going to manage everything. And guess what, Joe? You're about to taste the teeth. The teeth of the resistance. So let's, before the State of the Union, start going to this disgusting disinformation from George Soros talking points directly from George Soros' organization. Here it is.
Teeth
Wait, what kind of sandals?
of the resistance. I'm going to taste the teeth of the resistance. So apparently, these two started to talk. I mean, I guess one called the other. And in one calling the other, they made amends over the phone. To be fair, Joe Rogan wasn't really part of this quote-unquote war. This was Alex Jones flipping out. And using this for, I would say, probably an entertainment effect in order to essentially push up relevance to some degree. And he's on the Joe Rogan show, so you can't necessarily say the strategy was wrong or that the strategy did not work. You question what kind of attention do you want? And I guess in his case, any attention is a good attention if you're in the game of showbiz, which is what I think he is. So let's go to one more part. This part was a fight between this cat, who's apparently a flat earther, and Alex Jones.
I believe
Eddie,
it's
let me
all over
explain.
the news.
Eddie,
I was just playing with
Eddie,
you.
let me explain to you. Let me explain to you. We went into a long conversation about
I heard
that.
it.
We played.
I heard it.
Okay, you heard it.
I heard the whole podcast.
Oh, yours teasing
I'm
me.
playing with you.
Okay.
But
Come
on.
imagine my psychosis
Think
is
about
this.
what I said. Think- okay.
Reality is so crazy that I always thought I was so tough.
Can't believe
that
he
I
doesn't
could-
have to pee anymore.
That I gotta piss a little bit.
Alex,
the point is that the point is that, dude, I'm not. The reality's so crazy. Why are we debating whether the Earth is flat, dude? They have human-animal hybrids. There's the freaking. I have been there when people that work for the Pentagon say that we go to the laboratory and we meet with the ambassador. We have to take higher and higher dosages to meet with them. They're giving us technology, and the technology worked. I mean, this is going on, dude. Do you want to know this?
Listen, relax.
You think about
Alex.
space isn't real. The freaking dimensions, man. The aliens are coming through the dimensions.
Alex, think about what I said. I said, dude, do you think there's actually people out there that believe or that are campaigning?
I got a $20,000 digital
Alex,
telescope where I can look at freaking Saturn.
Listen to what I said.
Alex, he's fucking
Did you hear
with
what
you.
I
He
said?
was fucking with you.
I said, do you think there's actually people out there that are campaigning for late-term abortions? Of course there are, but I'm making it seem like I don't believe they are.
No, I get it now.
I'm being the ultimate skeptic.
Okay, I thought you were.
I'm being the ultimate skeptic.
Listen, Eddie
Listen
does
to the
that.
words I
He
said.
does that all the time. He's just
I
fucking
like
around.
it. The
I
point
want
is-
her to be your
here's the thing,
enemy right there.
I'm threatened. I'm not Mr. Goody Two Shoes by them keeping babies alive and killing them, and that nobody cares. I fundamentally. That's what I'm saying. I'm being honest here. Is I'm not like certifiably crazy, but I deal with this all day long. I get why Joe tries to shy away and people go crazy dealing with
No,
it.
well, I never saw that clip of that guy saying that they would resuscitate the babies and then they would make.
This started from a conversation talking about Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, where he's talking about some kind of policy of some odd policy. That's the catch with Alex Jones, man. It's like there are elements of what Alex Jones is saying that may be right, but there are other elements that are weaved into it that weave this kind of narrative and weave this kind of tale that takes you down rabbit holes. Like, let's see, where are they? We're at 127. I'm going to jump to 1231 or 131. In fact, I am even willing to pick any random part on this video and just jump to it and see the level of crazy that's exuded by Jones. I put 131 down for a reason, though. Let me check it.
Alex, welcome back. We're talking about kamikazes. We were saying that we think kamikazes were they gave him crystal meth, right? Wasn't that a part of the program?
Yeah. No, I mean, warfare is always drugs. And
we were
the
saying
Nazis
that too.
and the Japanese, well, the Japanese learned about in World War I when they were actually on our side against Russia. Well, went back and forth. In World War I, the Japanese learned about MSG because Japanese like good food, and they're like the military wouldn't complain; they would just lose weight and starve to death. So they learned when they were fighting the Russians in World War I to just go ahead and give them MSG. Which MSG eats holes in your brain, everything. It's super toxic. And so, yeah.
Monosodium glutamate? Like the stuff from Chinese food? Is that what you're saying?
It's super freaking toxic. Yeah, but the
Is
point
it
is.
Really?
But beyond that, yes, they would give them. Well, the Germans were big on steroids and methamphetamine.
That's we were just saying that.
Yeah, well, that's on record.
Saying.
I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is like in mainline history stuff. By the way, I said I'd give you the secrets of Hitler.
Oh, there's secrets?
Yep.
What are they?
But this is not the BS. This is the real thing.
Okay.
How do you know though? Who's telling you this stuff?
It's beyond classified, Eddie.
Beyond classified, Eddie.
No, I mean,
Alex, seriously, do you ever think?
Okay,
because you have a lot of sources.
My grandfather was German in Dallas, and he worked for the inventor of indoor air conditioning. He was a billionaire in what's the rich area of Dallas where the Republicans all live? God, what's the name? He wanted by the time World War II started to drop out of UT and all that and go join the Army Air Corps. So he used to tell me all this stuff. My mom would go, "Your grandfather is a little eccentric." Now, today, giving everything he had because they were going to kill his family in Nazi Germany. And he was German. And so my grandfather went and enlisted in the Army Air Corps to fight Hitler because he had that experience. And he was so mad when I was a kid. He was like, when I was a kid in Dallas, WBAP had Hitler speeches on because Germans are a big part of because it was this whole ethos. And so that's just the whole story of understanding that. And I have my dad's angle and my grandfather's angle and all these other angles.
Operation Paperclip?
He didn't call it paperclip. He said our government brought those. The thing he would always say was,
yeah, but I think there was several waves. There was
it's like 34,000 of them.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Operation Paperclip was, I guess, the thought of the United States government. It was, what's the point in having these scientists go to waste? These guys are, fantastic at math. They've been doing all of this military technology for the past X number of years. We'll bring them over, and we'll use the skills that the Nazis were applying for their ends to our own ends. So in this case, NASA, for example, you would bring people in, German scientists, some of which were Nazis, and have them work for American causes. That's true. It took place. That's kind of my point. Alex Jones says some stuff that's true and weaves a tail with that stuff. Let's keep going.
The fucking Nazi scientists brought over
on
here.
YouTube, it says Operation Paperclip was anywhere from like 1,200.
Dumb down and to turn you off. But when you go to the real academic stuff, the old days of Frontline and stuff, like I watched that to know it was true. Later, I got the documents. It's all real. That like those underground mountains.
How about the Nazis were the first to build flying saucers?
All of it.
How crazy is that?
But let me tell you,
that's crazy.
So,
isn't that a coincidence?
So British
British
intelligence,
flying saucers, dude.
The CIA in 47. So now the Nazis are over here and they go, listen, you don't want them running everything. And they go to, it's in the documents. And so you had one that was British run, and the Germans came to our own U.S. elites and said, hey, you always need a couple plans. They said, we've got all this on the drawing board. The EU, a plan to poison the food and water to get rid of the dumb people, a plan for off-world bases. We've got, by the way, we're taking hardcore drugs and we're in contact with aliens.
How is
They're giving us technology. It was the Germans first got in touch.
Well, how'd they do it?
They were really.
And I love Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is awesome. Joe Rogan is hearing all of this. They're taking drugs and talking to aliens. And the wild part about this, I don't know what reality is any more than anyone else knows what reality is. So I am not necessarily a hard ass on this idea of contact, like if C-SETI techniques or whatever techniques, but of trying pretty much anything to see if it works and cross it off if it doesn't necessarily work and move on to the next item to try to see if something works. You have to evaluate people in their own terms, and sometimes you may find surprising things when you do that. So I'm not going to necessarily take that off the drawing board as supposed possible. I've heard of the stories of Germans trying to contact aliens. I've heard of that before. The what is it? That German scientist. Let me play this again. That's amazing. I love that. He said they were taking drugs and talking to aliens and building alien bases. Come on. Do it again.
And let them try to run an empire. We'll build a whole new empire. And so Eisenhower gives a speech, worry about, he doesn't just say military industrial complex, he says the technological elite. Watch the full 21-minute speech, his farewell address in 62. He says, or 61, he says, you need to watch out about the scientists because he said no to the NASA plan when he found out what it was.
What is it?
It's a breakaway civilization where you don't try to run the whole planet.
Love Joe Rogan in this. This is kind of why I say I think he allows people to say what they say on their own terms, and for whatever reason, that could be good or bad. You know, it's like giving you enough rope to hang yourself. This happened to Jordan Peterson, and this happened to that New York Times reporter that was attacking Tulsi Gabbard. In both of those cases, Joe Rogan allowed the person to be who they are. In the Alex Jones case, like I said, Alex Jones was the one that declared war. Alex Jones was the one that was attacking Joe Rogan. And I suppose that if Joe Rogan has any powers at all, one of the major powers that he has is to give a good interview and allow the person to do what they do in the interview. And in this case, Jones being Jones, this is some out there shit to say, man. And all of it is just all across the board. It's not like a cohesive, let's say, it's not like you're talking about climate change and you're sticking with the item of climate change. Alex Jones is talking about Mexicans. He's talking about Asians being robots. He's talking about bases on the moon. He's talking about people taking drugs and talking to aliens. In one of the other cases. And Joe Rogan, only main question is, why is that the case, Jones? Jones goes into another thing. Why is that the case? Explain that. What is the point of that? Give me your, and Jones feeds into it and fills the gap that Joe Rogan creates. I love this. Let's go back. Let's see some more.
You siphon off resources and build a whole new advanced system, and then you play everybody off against each other and collapse it. So when I say, what is NASA? If we could take NASA back over, it's bigger than the CIA. It's the real government. The spaceships and the stuff, that's all PR.
NASA is the real government?
NASA, there were two breakaway governments, two shadow governments.
NASA is the real government?
I talked about shadow government 20 years ago. So it's in the documents. And so you had one.
NASA's being drained of resources. What do you mean NASA's the real government? Oh, God, man. I wish I could sit here and watch this entire show with you all. But I can't do that because I will get dinged. Krillin 876. Watchers got up to 180K this afternoon. Really? Watchers got up to 180,000 this afternoon. Watchers? What do you mean watchers? Oh, you mean on his show? He brings them in, don't he? He brings them in. Yes, it is. He does bring them in. Meditating Jesus. Anything is possible through Jesus Christ. Fair enough. The garden of Paul. He has more self-control than I do. Let's see. More self-control than I do. Some of the shit Jones said about Rogan was unacceptable. Yeah, Jones went after him big time, man. There were 2 or 3 of those videos where Jones talking about declaring war. That video, by the way, where Jones was going after him, I showed you one clip. Jones did that for 30 minutes. That video is 30 minutes long, where the entirety of that video, he is punching Joe Rogan in the face over and over again, calling him weak. I think at one point he might have called him like a boy or something like that. Said they were scared. At one point he called him a whore. He was brutal. He was totally brutal. So yeah, that's watchers are the guys behind NASA, Jamarl. I gotta be honest, I'm kind of retarded. Laugh my ass off. Joe pulled out of his chair. Let's see some more. Hopefully I'll be allowed to show some more of this without getting dinged for anything. But let's show some more.
Weird ones.
Like that.
Nice guy.
Like
Leave him
wooden
alone,
one.
bro. It's just shoes.
What
were you saying?
He runs a couple different companies.
Alex Jones has just said that NASA is the real government, and that there is breakaway civilization, but NASA is the real government.
One that was British run, And the Germans came to our own U.S. elites and said, hey, you always need a couple plans. They said, we've got all this on the drawing board. The EU, a plan to poison the food and water to get rid of the dumb people, a plan for off-world bases. We've got, by the way, we're taking hardcore drugs and we're in contact with aliens.
How is
They're
the
giving us
plan-
technology. It was the Germans first got in touch.
Well, how'd they do it?
They were really into the occult.
Yeah, really into the cult. That's what all the
He
Indiana
had like
Jones shit
witches
is
and
about.
shit around him at all times.
Yeah, human sacrifices.
Did you know that?
No,
And
they
that's
had
real
like,
shit.
Yeah.
The Vril Society.
What I'm
VRIL.
telling you, Joe, this is not me. You go to the real deep PhD level history books.
Okay.
NASA is the German breakaway government. Just always the Germans and the Brits fighting for dominance. Okay?
So what you're saying is when Operation Paperclip acquired all those Nazi scientists, they essentially started running NASA. So NASA became like almost like an offshoot of the German government, this offshoot government.
Yeah, the Germans had piled all the wealth away. They had everything, so they made
Does that
deals.
really make sense though that in 2019 that's still going on?
No. The British intelligence doesn't run the CIA today.
Most wars don't go down to the point of obliteration, like where the government is completely smashed. Most of these wars, for the most part, are bargained out. You know, you get to a point and you agree to some kind of terms in order to stop the conflict. So, like, people have gas on their chest that they need to get off. At the point in which whatever that fires, that impetus runs out. All right, let's come to a deal. Let's come to an agreement. Now, you could have just came to an agreement in the beginning, but some people think that they can get what they want. If they can get it through force, then they can set the agreement itself. Meaning, the moment that I have such an upper hand on you, I don't have to continue this fight because you know I can obliterate you. So you're willing to come to the bargaining table, but you're going to get a worse end of that particular deal. Think of World War I, for example. That war went on, I forget, 3-4 years. But in the terms of that war, Germany started to get the worst hand of that. Germany started to get the worst hand of that war. Germany, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, they started to lose. Now, Ottoman Empire was completely smashed, but Germany retained itself, but it was somewhat decapitated in regards to the amount of land and everything that was taken. But it was an agreement of sorts. I'm making the point in the difference between a war ending from the standpoint of agreement versus a war ending from complete and utter obliteration. Germany was completely obliterated in World War II. This idea that there's a shadow government somewhere, Germany was completely obliterated in World War II. It's like you can look at what it looked like at the end of that war. It was a war of obliteration. There was no terms that were going to be expressed. It was, we will win and we will set the terms of the debate after we win when we're standing on your corpses. That is essentially how that war played out. This idea that the scientists themselves, some of which, just because they were Nazis doesn't necessarily mean they were hardcore Nazis, get bought to another country and they, I guess, start producing babies at some point who become NASA scientists also. And they take over NASA. And there's a split breakaway civilization run from NASA, which is also somehow running the U.S. government, I guess by proxy. Joe Rogan's question, but how do they get away with that, Jones? How did they get away with that? Which allows Jones to go further into explaining how exactly does that work and how does that take place. And when asked, Jones will always have an answer. That in and of itself is epic in its magnitude. So let's see. Wait a minute. I have a Streamlabs. Ron Paul. Jamarl, you're a good Negro son. You do your people proud like that Juice World. I like the cult. I like the cut of Negro community's jib. Look, I had some newsletter, but don't worry about that. We can do hip hop. And those hoes over there is like as well as a young man vote Rand Paul. What? Every time I hear Jones, I hear it. Every time I hear Jones, I hear it in Bellacoy's voice from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Jones! Oh, like what's his name? And flat earthers. Flat earthers are colluding with the aliens to put chemicals in the water to force the friggin' gay frogs to have abortions while the Mayans fake the moon landing. we need to do something about that if that's true, man. I mean, we can't have, those gay frogs fucking up the moon landing stuff. Yeah. Yeah, there's that. All right, let's keep going. I think, of course, there's more. This goes on for 3 hours. I can't show the entirety of the 3 hours, but I'll still show some.
He's not sitting at Twitter's offices
that's
every
another
day.
thing that Alex Jones brought up today. That
the British Empire was under attack and just bankrupted itself in World War I. It said, we'll give you the keys of the kingdom. Churchill wrote 3 books, this history of the English-speaking peoples. He was half American. And this is officially in books. We merged with the British Empire in like 1930, covertly. Okay, that's what the CFR is British intelligence and U.S. intelligence.
We didn't merge with the British Empire. What the hell? This is what I mean. This goes into such a rabbit hole. Like, you start with something that may be real, that has a legitimacy. Operation Paperclip. And Joe Rogan asks basic questions like, how is that possible? Are you sure? How did that work? And there's a look on his face when he's asking, because he's asking, and I don't think he's being genuine here. He's asking this question because he wants Jones to go further into this. And Jones, anytime he's asked, always has a reply. And that reply gets wilder and wilder and wilder. NASA's breakaway civilization of Germany, America has merged with the British Empire. The British Empire, after World War I, had expanded to include the entirety of the world. Not the entirety, but the largest in the world. But it was brittle at that point. It was a brittle empire. I mean, ultimately, it used all of the resources at its disposal in order to beat back Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey on this front, or the Ottoman Empire. By the time World War II came around, the country still hadn't fully recovered from the First World War. And the things that they put in place in order to stop Germany from expanding, I can't think of the name, there's a row of guns and so forth, they didn't necessarily attend to. I mean, if France would have attacked Germany and stopped their provocations early on, France had a majority in their military at that point. France could have done that. France didn't do that. There was no fight in those countries at that point. Those countries wanted to somehow get along. Hitler was doing a certain degree of brinksmanship, because at the point where they started taking countries, they weren't necessarily prepared to defend what they've taken. It just so happened it was a weakness of the other forces in this camp that allowed that to prosper. And that's assuming you're not going to the Versailles Treaty, where you can make a case that the treaty itself was a pretext for the Second World War. But nevertheless, my point is this. The British Empire fundamentally collapsed. When the pound no longer was the world standard in regards to currency, the British Empire crumbled. Not to mention the micro mission, I think it was in Egypt when they were trying to take the canal. It was clear at that point that Britain's dominance from the standpoint of the world had shrinked, dramatically. I don't know what reason the United States government would have merged with the British government at this point from the standpoint of the British Empire. What reason, what force, what impetus would have been there? There would have been nothing. At this point, Britain is somewhat of a lapdog of the United States. And I say that as somebody who watched British politics and loved the country and all that good stuff. It's a lapdog of U.S. policy. It's not the other way around. So just saying, there would be no reason for the United States to merge with Britain in this case, because the United States already had Britain's compliance across the board. But let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Intelligence. So the U.S. runs the show. Okay. So you've got, but German intelligence came to Eisenhower and said, listen, you don't need to do all this. We haven't given them the real technology. We're in contact with aliens. And they've given us the whole plan.
Now, where are you getting this from that you're stating it so confidently?
Where are you getting this from that you're stating this so confidently? I love that. I love the question. That's an awesome question. What's the answer?
It's in the literature, man. Hitler would go.
What literature?
mainline historical books about
mainstream.
SS castles where they go, the aliens want blood, so they'd kill like 20 kids and everything. So the aliens would like come in.
Aliens are eating blood?
They brings them in like sharks. And then they would like give them technology. They go, this is how it works. You build the atomic weapons this way. You build it. They would like show them bombers and like the aliens are like telepathic. I don't even believe this. This is what the Nazis believe. And the aliens would mind meld and give them the technology. They're bad aliens.
So
are you surprised?
He says at one point he realizes, he says, okay, I'm saying some out this shit. I'm not saying I believe this. This is what they believed, but I'm stating this shit confidently. Yeah, man, this is awesome. Like, this is comic gold. I can't, I'm scared of doing too much more of this because I think Joe Rogan is going to ding me for this for a copyright strike. But nevertheless, I'm going to leave it here. I thought this was hilarious. Meditating Jesus. Gay frogs cannot melt steel beams, folks. If I'm not mistaken, they even get into 9/11 also. Like, they get into flat earth stuff. They get into 9/11. Joe Rogan, they're talking about aliens. I think at one point he says there's an alien base in San Francisco. And here's the thing. I'm not even saying that those things are impossible. I have no way to know. Weirder things, I would imagine, happen, and there's a probability of all of that stuff at some point, I would imagine. You know, maybe small, but there may be a probability of it taking place. But God knows my level of skepticism is infinite. And I guess it can't be infinite skepticism if you give the probability of something taking place, even if it's a small probability. But I think this is utter nonsense. And he's like going in on this. I know there's some stuff about the real society, and some of the stuff they believed in, but Alex Jones is taking this to another level of contacting aliens and getting technology from aliens. Now, it is true the German technology was way beyond the Allies, like the fighter jet. Well, there's video footage of the Americans coming in contact with a fighter jet for the first time. They had no idea what the fuck it was. It was flying around their plane. They couldn't touch it. But Hitler didn't put resources into this fighter jet, or if he did get to the point, it was far, far too late for it to do anything. But that technology alone would have made the bombers completely irrelevant from the standpoint of the war. The skills, the abilities of the fighter jet at that point that the Germans made, juxtaposed against what the Allies had, you couldn't touch it. I mean, the video footage shows this thing beaming around it, where the people had no idea what it was, and it was almost like the fighter jet or the other jets were standing still. That's how good those things were, but it was like one or two. It wasn't necessarily a huge number of them. The technology in Germany was, extreme in comparison to what the Allies had. But Germany had a very specific problem in that war that it couldn't overcome, and that was the problem of oil. I mean, ultimately, regardless of what type of war machine Germany had, that war machine had to run on something. And regardless of how complicated their technology was, it had to run on something. That something that technology ran on was oil. They had to get their hands on oil. And for the most part, there was a blockade on Germany getting their hands on oil, and they couldn't produce the amount that they needed themselves. Or it was like the process of converting some other kind of oil into the oil they needed was too expensive. Some of the missions that took place in the context of the war look like mistakes by Hitler, but in the context of a country that is starving for oil, they make more sense. I guess this is a tangent. I find what Jones is saying is utterly insane. Because that's my point. That's my point. The contacting aliens. I find that part amazing. So, there's another part. I now ended on this. In the video where they're talking about men that stare at goats. The men that stare at goats was something real, believe it or not. The movie takes it into odd places, but in reality, you had people who were remote viewers. Those people were trained by Ingo Swann to sit in a room and observe. They did this initially because the Russians were doing it, and they thought to themselves they needed to know what are the capabilities of this particular technique, and they needed to find somebody who had some level of ability that they can test it on or test it with to see if there was any legitimacy to what was taking place. Ingo Swann was a person that they used. He was a psychic, and they were able to come up with some kind of method to allow people to tap into their conscious or their subconscious, or superconscious, whatever you want to call it, and pull information without their body signals getting in the way. If that makes sense. This works, by the way. Anybody, for the most part, can do this, even though people have different levels of skill. But it's doable. It works. I've done this. This is one of those things where it's like you try on its own terms and see if it's any reality to it. Your body senses are loud. They get in the way. When you're trying to extract information in this way, it's almost like you set your intent to whatever the numbers represent. Those numbers can be anything. It doesn't even matter what they are. It could be a sign. It could be whatever. It just needs to have an imprint that this is what you're trying to pull information on. And people get the signals differently. But for me, I would get these impressions of like taste, sometimes sounds, but oftentimes it was just a knowing of something. The problem is, the moment that you get a knowing of something, your conscious mind kicks in and says, yeah, it's this and something else, meaning it adds stuff to it. It's hard to get just the thing in and of itself when your conscious mind kind of plays into it and tries to get involved. Not to mention, like I said, your senses are loud. If you're in pain, if something else is going on, if something else is on your mind, it makes all this stuff more difficult. But there's a there to it. You have people who are extraordinarily good at it, working with the United States government. Some people on the payroll, some people just working in coordination with them, using stuff like this. I mean, I don't know if they killed anybody with their minds. I mean, that gets a little extreme. I think they killed a goat at one point, like in the movie. But from the standpoint of pulling information, they've done all sorts of experiments on that stuff when they were first doing it. So, that's another one of those things that Jones brings up and takes it into a weird place when the reality of it in and of itself is weird. It's like you don't have to go into any odd areas on that place. So, I'm going to leave it here. This is hilarious. Part of me wants to just jump to a part of the video to see what kind of crazy comes out. In fact, yeah, fuck it. Let's do that. Let's randomly jump to any part of this video to see what comes out of it. Let's see. Shit, I missed it. Alright, right here. I don't know what this is. Let's see what this is.
Yeah.
So that's why moons are red. They're red when they rise. They're white when they go to the top.
It's all the shit we're looking at it through. Yeah, we've got a weird situation, huh? A big-ass 1/4 size planet just floating. Just floating above us. We stare at it. Well, it's a full moon tonight. That is fucking weird. There's a planet that's right there.
I fell asleep at like 10 o'clock last night and missed your call, and I woke up.
Why is that weird? Why is that weird? I don't understand why that's weird. I mean, under that context, everything is weird. I mean, you're a person. You're breathing air. What are the chances, the likelihood that an arrangement of cells come together in order to create organs, in order to create a person at some point, from one thing to the next? That in and of itself is somewhat weird. I guess I'm making a point that under that guise, everything is weird, depending upon who's looking at the thing. From the standpoint of weird, though, being, if we give it a definition of saying things are weird when they are somewhat out of place, or their reasoning for being there, what are the chances of the reasoning for being something being X or something being Y? I think that's anything, right? I mean, the fact that we're breathing, the fact that we have bodies of sorts, the fact that we're conscious, the fact that we're aware. All of this stuff is weird. The fact that there's time in and of itself, the fact that there's reality in and of itself, all of that stuff is weird if you're going to say that the moon is weird. Usually, weird is not something that you've grown up around. If you were transported to a planet with 2 moons, at that point you would say, wow, that's kind of weird. There's 2 moons. I'm only accustomed to 1 moon. Weird deals with things that you're accustomed to, and you're accustomed to the moon. It is weird in and of itself of its existence in the same way that you and your existence is weird. I hope that makes sense. It's just an odd thing to say that the moon is weird, unless he's making a more existential point of just reality in and of itself is weird, and the fact that the moon just so happens to be there is weird. I don't know. Let's keep going. Let's let him finish. I'm intervening.
Like 3:30, and I had to get up, and I looked out, and it looked fake. It was so beautiful.
Sometimes,
It was a
yeah.
half moon, and I was looking out the hotel like a 500 yards from here, and I'm looking at how beautiful that is. It's just like, hey, it's okay to say it's made out of cheese. It probably isn't.
Did you ever see that movie Dark City?
Hell yeah, I love it.
Great fucking movie. Kiefer Sutherland.
Yep.
Fucking great movie. Sometimes
That's a good movie. That's like a Twilight Zone.
It's like a Twilight Zone. It's a classic. I'll watch that motherfucker again. But it makes me feel sometimes like reality. Like that movie was so strange because it was.
They're stoned. They're stoned. That's what's going on. I'm trying to figure out why is Joe Rogan going into these places with this. Like this gets, like say the moon is weird. Joe Rogan is right. The moon is weird, but it's weird in the sense that everything is weird. Saying that is somewhat of I guess you could say a point of view on reality itself being somewhat of an odd thing. The fact that anything exists and the fact that it exists in any particular way is somewhat of an odd thing. We get accustomed to it. So from the standpoint of, us being weird as things that we're unaccustomed to, that dog has 2 tails. That person has 6 toes. That's kind of weird. 5 toes makes all the sense in the world, though. None of it matters. Like, there's no yardstick. The yardstick is purely based on conception. And even terms like weird or strange are relative to something else. But Joe Rogan's comment is interesting to me because Joe Rogan's comment goes beyond the conversation itself into a wider conversation on anything being anything and why those things, what they are. And it's kind of argument about reality. Even the reference to Dark City. Dark City was a fucking awesome movie. Where they ended up having these psychic powers, but these people were taken from Earth and were put on another planet and that type of stuff. But the planet, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't real, sorts. It was like they were on a ship or something. But the movie was good. He was right. Let's let him keep going.
It was like this weird scripted reality that these people were.
Joe,
like, they'd have to find their way through the surface and shit.
They're all Luciferian.
Your family's real.
Yes.
Your consciousness is real.
No, I'm not saying that.
I know you know that. No, I agree. It's all virtual.
I'm just saying it's fascinating
I agree.
sometimes to
I'm saying
think
you're
about
right.
that movie.
I'm saying you're right.
Yeah.
It is virtual.
Yes.
But you're real.
Yes, you're real too.
You've been all of us have been put into a simulation to basically test us. And that's the big thing I'm trying to get across to people.
This is a fascinating fucking conversation. I gotta be honest, I'm liking this conversation. The virtual reality thing, yes, I believe. More so than not. Maybe not virtual in the sense that we think of virtual. I mean, who knows what the medium that is used in order to create a reality like this. We always think of virtual in terms of electronics because that's the medium that we know how to manipulate the best. But who knows what this is? This could be, But his point, I love the point that they're getting into this idea of what is reality itself. Like I said, that's where Joe Rogan seemed to be going with this. And yeah, that's exactly where Joe Rogan was going with this. Alex Jones, confidently, we're living in a virtual environment. I know this. This is exactly what I'm trying to get across to people. This conversation, you must understand, it's been all over the place. And Joe Rogan and the other cat have been smoking pot the entire show. So they're hammered. And so they're going into these weird conversations about reality that are just priceless. This is utterly priceless. Let's see. I have a super chat. I love it when my wife is here and helps with this. That hat of Jamarl Thomas. This guy always talks about politics, but never talks about hat issues. Like maybe I'm cold up here. Maybe his head is scratchy. Maybe I want to do more than sit up there. Maybe I want to dance, and maybe I want to sing Broadway play. But does he care? No. The version Murray 420. My hat has a life of its own, and it wants to just, dance fantastically and fabulously. You're trying to say my hat? You're trying to make my hat like a Broadway singer. All right, let's keep going. I love this because Joe Rogan is stoned off his ass, and because he's stoned off his ass, he's giving Jones the benefit of the doubt. And not just that, I think he wants Jones to be Jones so people can see he's fucking insane. But Rogan just asks the basic follow-up questions. Tell me more. Why is that the case? Why do you believe that's true? You spoke confidently about that. Keep going. And Jones goes further. Nazis were interacting with aliens and getting technology. The EU was a Nazi plan in order to take over the European Union. Britain, the British Empire, formed with the United States after World War II. Where is this going? He went to the other one that Mexicans were genetically violent and the part of Native American that's in him, the Comanche, 8% to be exact, makes him wild and aggressive. Robots, Asians are robots, and they're psychotic killers when they get into war and they form up with a group consciousness. Oh, also, Native Americans have a hive mind that's easy to mind control because it's a hive mind. Mexico is run like a laboratory because, again, that hive mind thing that's in effect from the United States. There's more. That's not even a huge part of the video. This video goes on for 4 hours. Oh God, it's gold. I'm angry that I can't get all of the crazy into one of my videos. But this is fucking gold. This is gold. And Joe Rogan, to his credit, just says, tell me more. Tell me more, Jones. Explain. Tell me more. Yeah, aliens, really? They were contacting aliens? Yes. How were they doing that? Well, they were using drugs and stuff. I mean, they were heavy on these drugs. Were they now? They were heavy on these drugs. And the United States is part... No. The United States is controlled by NASA. Really? Controlled by NASA? How do they get away with it? He's just plowing into it and letting Jones be Jones. I love it. It's like if you were having an interview with somebody who was utterly insane and you played it straight. You knew they were insane, but you'll play it into it to allow that person to show how absolutely insane they are. I don't think Jones is insane. I don't think Jones believes this at all. I think Jones is playing a show. He's playing a character. This is why I actually like watching Jones, because I think he's playing a character. I mean, in this format, the things that he says are utterly atrocious. Also, he just makes shit up on the fly. Me doing my presentation, I try to use news and information to get across the point. But I don't do that from a perspective of like reading something in this way of like somebody would do like a Jake Tapper, where they're reading a skit of something that takes place. I try to inhale the information and combine it with things that I know of the world currently and explain that. And I try to explain it as I was explaining to someone who's just in front of me. This is what is taking place, this is what's going on. With a summary in the beginning, with trying to give the details itself, like in the articles itself, afterwards. It makes my videos a little bit longer because it gets into a little bit more nuance of the situation that's taking place. But it's the way I try to do my videos. I try to make it faster, but it is what it is. Jones is spitballing. Like, so there's an art to what Jones is doing, even though it's somewhat of a wicked art. In my case, I look at this and say, he's doing an amazing job from a technical standpoint of trying to connect with an audience and, you can say, draw attention to himself and spew whatever he's spewing. But that's the technical aspect of looking at him do what he does, because it's somewhat similar in regards to the presentation to what I do. I marvel at that because I think he's fucking amazing at being a showman on this case. He is sitting here for 4 hours talking to Joe Rogan and at no point breaks character. And Jones is just Jones, and he goes further and further and further down the rabbit hole if you allow him to go further and further down the rabbit hole, which is what Joe Rogan has essentially allowed him to do. This is entirely hilarious. Give me 1 second. Jimmy Dore. Hey bro, when you interviewed me, did I leave my wallet there? I can't find it anywhere. Also want to come on my show. Meet me at Denny's to do the show tomorrow at 5. I want to get some pancakes. Did you want pancakes? I like bluebird pancakes. See what? There's an episode of oh god. There's an episode of David Chappelle show where Prince beats Charlie Murphy and his group in playing basketball, and Prince makes them pancakes and serves them pancakes after he beats them, and it was like, bitches. It's the funniest shit you would ever see in your life. The Virgin Mary 420. Yeah, that's hilarious, man. That's entirely hilarious. All right, last piece. I'm gonna let Joe Jones finish this. He's on a tangent.
Damn, Alex Jones. Let's wrap this motherfucker up.
Well, you're gonna eat steak with us, or you're gonna say, "Oh, I can't go eat"?
Let's eat, man.
All right, so let me ask this question.
Okay, go ahead.
He said, "Let's
You can
eat, man."
helicopter in at South Africa or wherever I can. Can you imagine the film searching flat Earth?
Let's do
And, like,
it.
Eddie
But
Bravo,
I'm sending a representative.
We
Let's
should
do
have.
it.
No. Eddie,
yeah.
you should be on the
I'm
show.
not going.
Who would you send as a representative? Do you have a guy?
I'll have like a contest.
Do you really believe
Trust
him?
me.
Oh, that's a good move.
No.
Have a contest.
Yeah, and then we'll just have a
Yeah. Eddie,
cameraman
you're
on
gonna
the
say
whole
it's made
time.
up. No,
we'll have a
Eddie,
cameraman. You pay for the cameraman's flight.
Eddie, GPS
so
is hundreds of these satellites.
Jamie can film.
Joe, let me ask you a question.
What were
Please
the
do.
big three? Say that again.
I think mystery is what. Oh yeah, I agree with you.
Describing that it was happy making, that it was not a big deal. If I didn't do it, other people would have done it.
There's
That's
a part
problem.
of this that
What I'm telling you is-
Look at this guy's stuff.
that I want
Schizophrenic separation. Let me stop.
Jesus
I'm going to
Christ.
give you
That's from Apollo
the launch
1.
Let's get
pad,
to Operation
Apollo
Launch.
7. And the aliens are coming through the dimensions.
Alex, think about what I said. I said, dude, do you think there's actually people out there that believe or that are campaigning?
I got a $20,000 digital telescope. Fucking governor, say we're going to keep them alive after they're fucking born. Because they want to fucking take their organs.
It's incredible.
He's a KKK guy?
It's incredible.
Of course, fuck.
It's so incredible that
He's in a picture with a guy in a KKK outfit in blackface. They elected him because he's blackmailed. They had that shit. And when he messed up and said we keep them alive to get their fucking organs, they used that to deactivate him.
Jeez.
Why do you think fraternities have you screw sheep and all this and, give guys blowjobs? That's why I never joined them. Because they want to compromise.
Wait, go back. What? Say that again. Fraternities. Okay.
I'm so happy we decided to do this podcast.
Wait,
I'm so happy.
See how it turned out?
To a long conversation about
heard
that.
it.
We played.
I heard it.
Okay, you heard it.
I heard the whole podcast.
Oh, yours teaching
I'm
me.
playing with you.
Okay.
But imagine my psychosis
Think
is
about what I
this.
said. Think about-
Reality is so crazy that I always thought I was so tough.
Can't believe
that
he
I
doesn't
could-
have to pee anymore.
That I gotta piss a little bit.
Alex,
The point is
Listen to what I said.
Alex, he's fucking
Did you hear
with
what
you.
I
He
said?
was fucking with you.
I said, do you think there's actually people out there that are campaigning for late-term abortions? Of course there are, but I'm making it seem like I don't believe they are.
No, I get it down.
I'm being
that
the
went too
ultimate
far.
skeptic.
Okay.
I see.
It's flat, dude. They have human-animal hybrids. There's the freaking. I have been there when people that work for the Pentagon say that we go
There's
Out
one
there
where he flips out.
campaigning for late-term abortions.
Come on.
You think that's
the guy that discovers
pee,
the flat
man.
Earth,
Go
the
pee.
big ice fields. Listen,
that guy's
I
gonna
can
be
get-
a-
this is what this out there campaigning for late-term abortions? You think that shit's real? You
The
think that shit's
Senate
real?
voted Monday to keep it legal.
Who
to
would
kill
do that?
Ari
Who would do that?
Children.
Who would campaign for that's
They
the most
fucking did it,
that is the
Bravo,
craziest
and
shit
you
ever.
can't fucking admit they're fucking killing already born kids. So you're telling me it isn't real when they had a fucking vote in the goddamn fucking Senate?
That's a conspiracy theory.
I am ready to beat your
That's a
fucking ass.
conspiracy
You
theory.
think you're fucking tough? You're about to get it. Bullshit! They're killing already born babies. Stop fucking lying. God fucking damn it! I'm getting pissed now.
Don't get pissed. Go
No,
pee.
I mean. You saw the dude. It's
He
going.
didn't
just
see it.
fucking
But you
with
really-
you.
Hold on.
Alex,
Hey,
Alex,
He's flipping out. God, man, Joe Rogan is just hamming it up. Why don't you go purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka? I know, right? Yeah. Charlie Murphy. Oh man, this is just awesome. This is awesome. Hi Jamal, TYT made a free video of Aaron Matei speaking with Cenk Uygur. Yeah, that's on my list. Carapace? I'm gonna go Carapace. Yeah, God, man, that's hilarious. Alright, I'm gonna end this. It's a 4-hour video. Like, they go like that for 4 hours. And Joe Rogan just sits there egging him on the entire podcast. You heard Joe Rogan's like, I'm so glad I did this podcast. Some of the stuff that he's saying gets across these kind of mini micro aggressions. I think he brought him on the show to make him look bad, but Alex Jones went on the show for the purpose of doing what Alex Jones just did. It's a win-win for both of them. He allows Alex Jones to be Alex Jones, and Alex Jones does not disappoint. Jones dropped so many red pills. Yeah, he dropped a lot of red pills. It's like the guard turned his back on the drunk tank on Saturday night. Right? Yeah, Bob, it is. It is. Shit, I told people to bring safety goggles for buzzsaw. Did you, Robert? Did you, Robert? I guess the question is, did what's his name? Hell, I watched 3.5 hours of it. It's hard to take your eyes off of it, right? Like you're watching this and it's like he's saying it's so wild. There's part of the stuff that Alex Jones say that's real. Operation Northwood did take place. The conversation that they're having with Governor Northam, that was a real tape. It's not a tape that they're screwing with. Operation Paperclip did take place. Like some of the stuff did actually take place, but it's weaved into fuckery. Like it's so bizarre that the stories that he weaves in this case, that I can kind of see how people looking at him and look at the world and say, okay, the world is really fucked up, and I don't think it's fucked up for no reason. There's a bad guy somewhere, and the bad guy is not necessarily the system itself. The bad guy is the people who are moving the pieces in this way in order to make the system the way it is. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this. For the most part, a system with various players in that system competing for the various things that the system has to offer can bump heads. And in bumping heads, more is done in each of the contests in order to win. Meaning the norms that are taking place in the contest start to fray away. The goal of it becomes less about the country itself and more about the actual things that the person can get, if that makes sense. But my point is this: you don't need groups of people moving the pieces in this way, having random actors trying to get the various things. You would have all sorts of outcomes. Many of those outcomes are usually out of reach because of the things that people have to do in order to get from point A to point B. I don't think you need a puppet master in this case. So I don't, but that's the theory put forth. And people look at the world and they say, okay, Alex Jones may be on to something, even though some of the stuff that he's saying may be off. And he's fearless at saying it. To be honest, at this point, it's somewhat of his brand to go there. So, yeah. Dude, when he started doing the Southern accent, I was freaking out. 5 years later, Jones is trying to fight Eddie out. At one point in the video, he's using Northam's Southern accent. And it is the creepiest thing in the world. Like, it's funny when he first starts doing it, but he changes the accent to make it more sinister when he started talking about them killing babies. Oh, God, man. This is an amazing podcast. I think both of them got what they were trying to accomplish out of this podcast. TYT, I can't wait until Jenks says, let's vote for Alex Jones because he's better than Trump, and criticize him all day from day one. TYT. Well, he did criticize Hillary. But at the end of it, he says vote for Hillary. But I think in that case, what is he going to do? He destroys his brand by trying to support Hillary Clinton because it makes him look like a corporate show. By the same token, you have a network that's supposed to be decidedly lefty. He might have been better off not supporting Clinton in this case. But, he attacks Hillary Clinton because that's part of the brand of that particular show. And if he wants to take some level of power within the Democratic Party, meaning the left, then you have to go after the ruling class. You can't be the politically abused spouse of the Democratic Party. You have to actually get a backbone, pull a Tina Turner moment. I'm not eating the cake, Ike, and slap the shit out of him. In this case, though, from their vantage point, they had to criticize. They don't have a choice but to criticize. I mean, TYT is this kind of quasi-political media organ at this point. And so it makes sense that they would criticize somebody of a different political philosophy. By the same token, turning around and saying, vote for the person that you've criticized from day one, that's... I suppose you may have to do that if you're the network for whatever reason. I don't know if it gets you the bang for your buck that you're looking for in that case. But I suspect that they might have suffered from that. I mean, some of the ire and angst, or the vilification of TYT, I think to some degree boils back to that. It is true that they may be doing stories that people may not like. They are pushing the Russiagate stuff when a large section of the left, for the most part, has completely rebuked that particular perspective of things. They haven't been able to necessarily prove the Russiagate stuff, even though they've continuously pushed that particular conspiracy theory. So it alienates aspects of the community that don't accept that. But beyond that point, the vote Hillary thing, after your person who's cheated, you may think that Hillary Clinton is the best person, which kind of goes against everything that you said prior. But you may make the comparison that between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, your interests are best served with a Hillary Clinton in that office. I don't necessarily think that's true from the standpoint of the left. The fact that Hillary Clinton lost, to some degree, I think bears that out. It's not that Donald Trump isn't bad. Donald Trump is bad. But your political objectives, from the standpoint of the left, needs to be somewhat different than the political objectives of the Democratic Party. There are times where they may coincide, but in times where they don't, and it needs to be clear that they don't. The Democratic Party chooses Clinton on this. Your network, meaning TYT, decided to say, okay, I'm going to tell people to vote for Clinton. Doesn't mean I'm supporting her. I'm just telling people that I'm going to vote for her and they should do the same. I don't know how he spells support, but it sounds like you're giving support, even if it's just in a political space where your vote is your support. What does it mean for your network? Is it to just remain in political circles of the Democratic Party that you were willing to support Hillary Clinton in order to, kind of the Elizabeth Warren way of going along to get along? And so that's somewhat problematic. Or did you really believe that Hillary Clinton was better between the two camps? I fundamentally disagree that she was better for the two camps. And I believe that because if she gets elected in 2020, nobody's going to challenge Hillary Clinton for the election itself. Your best chance from the standpoint of a lefty of getting somebody in that office that's decidedly lefty is for her to lose. Now, I'm not saying vote for Trump. I voted for Jill Stein. I'm not helping Trump over the finish line. By the same token, I'm damn sure not giving her a vote that I think is not necessarily in my best interest. So, I vote Hillary. I think that video was somewhat problematic, especially saying vote Hillary and Hillary Clinton lost. And I suspect if you want to remain some level of, this entry into the Democratic Party politics, that I would imagine TYT is kind of getting inroads in by people like Ocasio and some of these other people getting elected. They don't have a choice but to regard TYT to some degree. I suppose if they would have supported Hillary Clinton, those avenues into the Democratic Party would have been slammed shut. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, is it one of those things where you force the door open, in which case they don't have a choice but to regard you whether or not you voted Hillary or not? Or is it you've been somewhat allowed into, I guess, the party elite circles or party circles for the point of harvesting the votes for the Democratic Party from the left? But I guess the question is, would that have been the case if they would have said vote against Hillary and remain pure from the standpoint of their positions? I don't have an answer to that. No clue. All of it is at that point counter history. Let's see. What is it? Counterfactual. Brain Force Plus. Is it me, or does the title card with the Rogan and Jones look like a before and after ad for Brain Force? Brain Force. Oh, go on. I have. Oh, look at that chubby body. But that's before he was working out and all. This is after the show. It's showing that they're buddies and all. This is, I guess, the Brain Force ad. Joe Rogan kicking ass. He was punching people in the face for a living. Joe Rogan doing what he does best. This sure trips me out like nobody's business. And right here, I think this is the one you're talking about. Brain Force ad. That's an awesome picture. Yeah, that's an awesome fucking picture. And Riley Reed. Hi, handsome. Want to make a movie? Oh, I'm married, unfortunately. My wife and I, you've seen my wife and I interact with one another. We have a high level of conversation between the two of us. And sometimes having a high level of conversation, you can go into weird areas where the person may be uncomfortable or sensitive, or just aggravate the person just because people are people and they're human beings. But her and I do that when her and I interact with one another. And we got into this conversation of movies, of like porn. And jokingly, she said, I'm not going to end that word, but about porn. And I was teasing her. I was like, hey, if I need help financially, would you support me if I start doing porn? I was like, I wouldn't show any head stuff, and it'll be all just below body. And she's looking at me like, I don't want to have this conversation. I was like, why don't you want to have this conversation? Come on. If we're in need of cash, I mean, I'm trying to do this show, and if for whatever reason I still can't make ends meet, can I make up the gap of people who might have, stopped donating and everything else through porn? I'm entirely joking on this front. She doesn't want to hear this at all. And finally she says, I'm chiding her about this, and I'm like, why are you dismissing me? Why are you leaving dismissing me? I'm trying to have an honest conversation with you, and you're trying to dismiss me. And she's like, no, I would not be for you doing any kind of porn. I was like, even though it's above body? Yes, even though it's above body, like just above head's cut off. But there's some conversations, man, she gets iffy on. I guess my point is this. Want to make a movie? My wife has already said she's against me making movies in this way. Jamarl, nobody wants to see a 60-year-old dick. I'm just saying, man. You never know. There's a somebody out there for everybody. And not to mention, I made the point to her that with all the scarring and stuff that I have from surgeries and all, there may be some people out there who have a niche set of wants and may get off on all the scarring. I was like, we can make thousands of dollars. You're not going to support me in this endeavor? Her answer was no. Her answer was no. She wasn't feeling it at all. In fact, she got mad at me for even having the conversation. I was like, how are you not okay with just having a conversation? At this point, these things are just words. We're just fucking around. But she wasn't feeling it. Yeah, she wasn't feeling it. Part of the conversation originated from a talk we were having where I was like, it was Larry David. So Larry David had this thing in Curb Your Enthusiasm that at the point where they get to their 10-year anniversary, that he can have a fling with somebody. He can have one affair. And that his wife will be okay with the affair. It will be all above board. Everybody will know about it. But it's a gift for being with her for a decade or something. And in the show, the decade came around and Larry David was trying to sleep with somebody for the day. I was telling my wife, I was like, hey, when we've been together for 10 years, don't I get, a fling or something like that? And she was like, do I get one too? I was like, yeah, probably not. Because, my fling would just be a fling. I would always come back home and I would love you infinitely. But, women are a little bit different in this regard. And even though it's possible to have a fling that doesn't have an emotional attachment, I don't necessarily want to take the chance. So, yeah, on your side, probably not. Now, this, of course, is like, well, you're not fucking getting one. Now, both of us are joking in this conversation, but this conversation starts to take on kind of a life of its own. And it goes into all right. Well, how about this? I had friends who said when they went to kind of a club, like a sex club, that as long as they were there together, there was no issue. Now, this became an issue later on when one of the friends said that this guy who they were messing with saw them in the line at Martin's or something and wanted to have a conversation with him and wanted to, hook up and all this other stuff. But we were having this type of raunchy conversation. And of course, there's no way to go with that. My wife is viciously jealous, and that's too strong. Not vicious. That's the wrong word for it. I tend to be more laid back on this stuff, and that, I think all these things are cultural. But from her standpoint, she looked at this stuff. You made a vow, and this vow is going to be amended and so forth. And she's right. If the couples themselves decide to do something outside of that, then that's, on the couples themselves. But this idea of a fling and all this other stuff, not so much. She frowns upon that. She frowns upon that greatly. Let's see. The hat of Jamarl Thomas. Can I do a sexy hat porn? I'd let the hat do sexy hat porn. It needs to be checked before it comes back and sits on my head, though. I don't want any shit that's being passed from hat to hat. Just saying. Just saying. Never raunch convo with your wife. Why not? I tend to... My wife at this point is my best friend. You can make an argument my wife is my only friend. I don't mind having conversations with her pretty much about anything. In fact, some of the problem is that because I look at a lot of the stuff that takes place is just cultural. It's like this is a cultural artifact. This could have been any particular way, and the cultural way in which we do it is not necessarily the most optimal way to do it. That's how I look at most things. Well, not most things, but things that come up. It's like Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is nonsense. There's nothing behind it. All of these holidays, for the most part, are so nonsense. And things come up where she finds more value in than I find value in because I look at it as not real. Also, in our conversations, I tend to be more open. So I tend to say or tell her too much information that I don't necessarily see as negative or positive. I look at people as being people. So it's like there are things that people are going to want that may run against cultural norms. There are things that people think that, again, they don't necessarily say because they run against cultural norms. And in my head, it's like, this stuff isn't real. What's the issue with having these conversations? But we're different on this front. She's more plugged into life, I guess, than I am on a lot of stuff. Once she has her third kid, she may have a different point of view. Oh God, third kid. Bob, if we have a kid at all, it's only going to be one. And that kid is going to be named Asia or Misha or something to that effect. Named after Tao or after the Steely Dan album. It's only going to be one. There will only be one if it's any at all. Unlike Jamarl, I'm an alpha male. Oh, glad it's an alpha male. I think people are alpha or betas in various realms. They're alpha or beta in various realms. So you're not going to name your kid Alex? No, I'm naming my kid Asia. AJA. AJA. Name it Glock. The gender is irrelevant. Name it Glock. You can keep her, I'm joking, very badly, and bad quote. You can keep her. You can keep her. No, we have all sorts of conversations. I have no issue with having conversations with my wife. I look at her as a person. And in looking at her as a person, I look at, people as human beings. In the same way I have various needs, in the same way that I have things that I want. And I don't have this expectation that everything that I want is going to be satisfied within the context of the relationship. You're a person, of course not. And I mean just interests. Meaning everything is not going to be within the context of the relationship. Some things are going to be outside of it. Maybe if I'm playing chess, maybe if I'm doing, something else. It's not going to be something she's interested in. Maybe something I'm entirely interested in. Me doing my show, for example, that's something I'm interested in. She may not necessarily be. There are things that she's going to, I guess, believe is more real than I do. I guess my point is this. I look at her as a person. And I look at her as a person that is deciding that she's going to live with another person. And there are quirks and idiosyncrasies with everybody. Because everybody is somewhat different in this regard. Be fair, be honest. Even when you get into arguments, necessarily be grounded. I don't know, there's certain rules, I guess, that I try to go by in the context of the relationship. So, alright, I'm going to end this because this has gone all over the place. Asia, why not Peg? No, I like Asia better. I like Asia better. I like Asia. Asia's, that album was amazing. And Peg, Peg is okay. I think Asia is just badass. What do you say? Chinese music always sets me free. Here with the banjo, it sounds good to me. That is so fucking bizarre. When I first heard that album, I listened to that song. I think Asia was the first song I heard. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is he talking about? And in spite of saying, what the hell is he talking about? As the song went on, I'm like, oh my God, I love this song. Not to mention that album is just awesome. Steely Dan, man. Steely Dan. I hope Jamarl realizes that by stating so emphatically that only one child will be had, that twins or triplets have just been ordered from the universe. Oh God, don't say that. I think my wife set me up. We have two dogs, Pitsu and Bo. The first dog that we had, Pitsu, for the most part, when my wife and I first met, she had two dogs, but one she gave away because it was too big for the apartment, and the other one passed. Pitsu was a dog that we got together after the other one passed. dealing with Pitsu as a puppy, meaning we got him like a few months old, it's like dealing with a kid. Literally, it's like dealing with a kid. You have to pick up after him. He's always into anything. You have to make sure he doesn't kill himself. And you're doing this in perpetuity. And my question is always, it's like, why? Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody take on the responsibility when they could just live their life? Life has all of these challenges and all of these things that it can do. Why spend time doing this particular pursuit that doesn't make you happy, that's going to cause money and financial hardship, and it's going to be a pain in your ass? Why? Nobody can really answer that question. Some people say it's rewarding, but when you look at whether or not people are happy or not by kids, not so much. Stress. It's one thing if you had a society that made sure that people had their ends met. So if they had an extra kid, then maybe there's a stipend from the government, like a UBI that's increased that helps them take care of that kid. You want that kid taken care of because how that kid grows up is going to be an indication of what your society is like. And if that kid has a horrible and hard childhood, I guarantee you that your society will suffer as a response for that. You want to make sure that kid is raised. But it's like raising Pitsu was like raising a kid. Like it's this thing of her sneaking in that element of, get him to do this on a lower level with a dog as her way of trying to shoehorn in the kid. But we'll see. Because you have made bad decisions along the way and ended up with offspring. It's like you did use birth control or a pill. Yeah. Throw out the hardware. Let's do it right. I love my audience knows Steely Dan. I love it. All right, guys. I'm going to end this. I'm getting tired. It's almost 1 a.m. I'll see you bright and early in the morning. I still have 1 or 2 videos. I want to get to the TYT video. This video with Alex Jones was only supposed to be one of the topics, but screw it. I was going to make it into 2 videos, but I just leave it as one. Maybe. I mean, it's an hour long. Sometimes those videos hurt. But nevertheless, I'll leave it and see where it goes. And I don't think I'm doing any more for the night. This might be it. So, Clyde, night. It's been a long day. All right, Kyle, get some sleep. Hope you have a good night. And I'm going to say that to everybody else too. You all have a good and decent night. If you enjoyed the content, you find yourself coming back here often, please feel free to like the video, share the video, and you can support the content through PayPal or Patreon. And by the way, support for the channel allows you access to additional content for the YouTube videos, or additional content that is not necessarily shared by everyone else. After the Patron Appreciation Show, that becomes something specific to the patrons themselves. So, and we're working on adding additional content on top of that. So we're trying to make it a decent spot. We flattened the tier, so it's only like 1 tier. Even $1 gets you the content. I didn't necessarily want to go into $5 this, $10 this, that. If you want to support, you support it. Everybody gets access. So, thanks, guys, and I will talk to you. I don't think tonight, but probably in the morning. Have a good night. And this.